Okay, so like it's pouring rain, and I'm having a great day here. It's in California, and we never get rain because they stop it. And up until now, they've been chemtrailing. They still chemtrail. It's just it seems to have changed. I know I get a lot of talk about have they changed the chemtrails and that sort of thing, maybe they have. What do I know? But I just I don't. They could be flying fairy dust and candy corn. I don't care. I don't want I don't. No one asked me if I wanted that, and I don't want you flying stuff. This is gonna be a weird video already. What I wanted to say though is I just can't believe how hard it's raining here. It's wonderful, and we're California coast, and this is how it's supposed to be. We're like the all the weather's supposed to come through us, and then it all gets dissipated out into the rest of the country, during the winter months here, and it's really important. It's supposed to be a steady supply of water coming out of the Pacific, and I don't know what it does to the rest of you guys out there in America, anyways. It just turns into like snow and stuff. But anyway, we're just very grateful that that's happening right now. Okay, so my friend Jojo, big shout out to Joe, wants me to talk about the banks and the what's going on with the banks. Well, they're crashing. So here's my Telegram. Please come and join me on my Telegram. I'm hanging with Maddie on Telegram as well, so you can just kind of like look that up, search that. Well, it's huge news right now that the banks seem to be dissolving. Now, we've been hearing about this for a long, long time. I'm going to stop scrolling here because I'm just sort of like trying to think of what I want to do, say. Because I'm not like, I'm, I know some things, but banking, I don't know that much. But I do know that we have to change this financial system. The financial system is, at the very least, based on Babylonian money magic. You look at our dollar bill, look at everybody's bills, but especially America, who basically runs the world as if it's theirs, right? Because that's what the Satanists are doing. The Satanists, let it's the AI doing it. Let's do this step down. It's the AI, and that's controlling the reptiles. The reptiles are rife with this AI, and they're all about like conquering and killing and subjugating and taking from all these different civilizations. Where they are, I don't know. I mean, are they in space? Are they on a larger globe and we're in a crater? Um, it doesn't matter. They're out there somewhere, and also dimensionally as well. All you have to do is just tweak the frequency, and you're in a totally different Earth. But there's many more planes of existence. Let's put it that way, and definitely many more civilizations out there, and that's what these reptiles seem to be wanting to do. The AI seems to want the machine city. The AI is the machine city that you see in the Matrix. That's why they made those horrible movies. Maybe they're not horrible, but that's why they're showing, the Terminator, all that stuff. It's all one. It's all together in the same universe that they want us to be in. That exists. I mean, the reptiles are like basically machines. They have almost little to no emotion, and then you've got humans on the other extent with too emotional. But emotion seems to have some sort of play in creating reality. So we seem to be wizards. And I think this has something to do with back as we go back into the Richard Shaver stories and the Atlantis stories, Mu, Lemuria, Tartaria, the free energy grid. We seem to create stuff. We were called the Ro, R-O, which is, according to Richard Shaver's man tongue, or the universal language that was given to us by the elder race, or what some might call angels. That's why it's called English, and we're the Anglo-Saxons. It's got something to do with that. But in this term, every letter has a vibration and a meaning, just like any other language, really. And R is like horror, is what he says. But I've studied this and I've given it some contemplation. The R seems to be like like it could be horror. Didn't necessarily mean it was good or bad. It was just sort of like some sort of, like when a dog growls, we're about to get busy, for good or for bad. The O is orifice or a container. So the rho is sort of like a container of will, which is what humans sort of are. Now, whether or not we were this size or not, I think we're the descendants of the giants of Atlantis that came down. And we're much more diminished now. But I also think that we were somehow worker bees or something like that, because that's what the rho were. And the veriform were rho, according to Richard Schaefer in these stories. And the veriform were quite large, and they were also of varying genes. They weren't the humans that we see today. Some were, hybrids. We'd call them hybrids. And that's where some of these reptiles are. Now, you know that in all these stories, it's the Draco and the AI that's taking over and conquering everything and killing everybody. But there are stories of good, reptiles. I've actually seen them. I don't know if they're good, but I've seen the reptiles. I've seen this. I don't want to insult anybody, but a lower caste, because I haven't seen the Draco personally with my own eyes, but I have seen a lower caste of worker, what I would consider worker beings, and they were reptiles, bright green and really like super glossy, or lime green almost, or a Kelly green, and just really glossy, almost like a wet skin, and they were probably like 6-7 feet tall, pretty solid, and in a different dimension. And they were shocked that I could see them, and there was machines there, and they seemed extremely disconcerted and I was dancing. This is a weird story. Really, one of these days I want to tell all these stories. But in the midst of this going on, I was dancing sort of in their face to kind of just, I was dancing in their face. Yeah, you're not going to control me or anymore. And I'm sure they still do to an extent, and they certainly did in the past, but not to the degree that they used to. And I didn't consider them evil or anything. They actually seemed quite nice. I bet I bet we can go get a beer together. Okay, this story's getting out of hand. Okay, so let's talk about these banks. Well, we know the banks are coming down. Oh, thanks, James. We know the banks are going to fail. Why are they going to fail? Because it's based totally on fiat, and fiat is just basically fake money. But more importantly is that it's Babylonian money magic with all kinds of, satanic symbols and stuff on there. They got the owl, Moloch, and, basically what it boils down to is control. And they're going to control us by killing our babies, harvesting us, our babies' youth and our baby's beauty, and it's just like a mob, and they're just gonna keep going. When they take over a restaurant or a store or something, they just run it into the ground until the day that they burn it down. And that's exactly what they do. That's where the mob gets their ideas. The mob is controlled by the Vatican. The Vatican gets their marching orders from the Jews, the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, and then they get their marching orders from the underground satanic families, who are being controlled by the reptiles, who are being controlled by the AI. And that is the step down of that. And that's basically all it is. Satanism is just, it's a cause word for for control. And it's for control at a spiritual level, down, as we talked about in the last video, down spiritual things cascade down into the physical realm, or what we call 3D. We're multidimensional. We're like in 3D, 2D, 4D, 5D. We can be in any D we want to be, and we can consciously choose that. Daryl James was talking about being in, instead of different he said densities instead of different dimensions, densities. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. He said, and Daryl James is a secret space program pilot, quite smart, very, very, very well spoken, and extremely intelligent. But he was saying when he was in the program that when he first got put in, he got thrown into like a density or a density chamber, or a barometer, a chamber, and there's some sort of, and they put him through this whole thing, and they like basically pressurized him into fifth density. And he said when you're in fifth density, that you could basically move faster, you're stronger, you're smarter. There's gateways through time where you could like literally jump through time. So instead of walking 20 feet, you could just walk 1 foot and be like 20 feet away, and moving that fast. As crazy as that sounds, that totally makes sense, because when you talk about cryptids and you go into this world of the cryptids, who again, James Mazio points out, might quite possibly are tied to this old Atlantean system, and quite possibly could be some of the Veriform, the Ro, and or some of these organic machines that comprise the Tartarian and Atlantean technology. But when you get into that, you'll notice many, 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 many stories of, one, that are invisible. They can be invisible anytime, and honestly, just the fact that they have their hair, like even my dog, you go out and then they're quite difficult to see up against the natural, flora and fauna, and so they got that going for them. But and they're quite physical, but yet at the same time they're quite ethereal. They can seem to be able to portal in and out of trees. They can hide behind trees, and they're gigantic. You get this tree is only like a foot wide, 3 inches wide. So something's going on. They can definitely climb, move a lot faster. So again, this is getting back to this fifth density. It seems to be real. Density, dimensional. Everybody's talking about this ascension. I think this is all tied together. And then once you start getting into these higher, or whatever these levels, or whatever this is, it's like leveling up in a video game. And, first of all, the intelligence would, any amount of intelligence added to us, our system would be most welcome, and can completely change your life. And I know for me, I can just talk to Source. I can ask Source any question and immediately get the answer. So I assume it's going to be like that. And it's basically a personal journey, and you need to, that's a personal thing that you're going to find your way to do that. And that is like connecting to your higher self. Okay, so getting back to these banks. Well, the banks are going to crash. And it's because we need to change the system, because it's based on such evilness that we have to, it has to be changed. And currency's been the currency of control. And so Joe wants me to talk about the QFS. Well, the QFS, I'm just going to talk from my heart, because a lot of this is basically, is what I would say they tell me. Or again, I'm getting this information from Source. It's like a download, or it just comes into my being and my knowledge. I just know. Plus, I'm researching. Like, you have to know, I'm on it almost every minute of the day. It's like, it's driving everybody crazy, but I have to do it. It's what I'm here for. But the QFS, the quantum financial system, that's going to be basically like spirit. That's spirit. So once you start getting out of this, and even this physical density of our being here, third dimensional, it's still spirit. Spirit's what's running it. Where is the spirit? Is it in us or is it somewhere else? It's both. And there is no space, as we talked about. The QFS is completely 100% tied to God, or what most people would call God's source, the fabric of reality. And that is the game changer. So there's no tricking it. And the word I was looking for in the last previous video was telepathy, the telog that they used to put on their head, which was become a crown, is the telog, or the telepathy and telekinesis augmenter, so they can control that and boost it and amplify it and understand what you're thinking, even though you might be a lowly worm or a gigantic tree, or maybe you're a dragon, or it doesn't matter. Communication is all at the same level. Yes, I think and speak in English. However, if you were from Finland and we had the telog on, what they call a crown, we would still be able to understand each other. And even without it, and that's just an augmenter, an amplifier, but even without it, everything can organically take place. We could boost our telepathy organically, and if we had that and you were Finnish or whatever German, we would automatically understand and speak to each other, and that would be the language of pictures anyway. You're pushing an idea, and then the idea gets pushed back. You push it in picture form, in image form, and like a dream. You already know so many things in a dream. Nothing needs to be told to you. You know you have shoes on. You know the landscape is out there, and that sort of thing. And so our consciousness needs to be boosted, and that is fifth density. I'm not even sure how I got to that. The QFS. So the QFS will be at that level. So that's a complete change. And I'd like to just talk about this weird concept of the New Jerusalem and Jesus Christ, or Michael, who I think is these beings are on this ship, the New Jerusalem. Some people are so religious that they might take umbrage to this, and I hope you don't. I'm never here to do anything negative per se. I do get in my I get in my moods. I'm not gonna lie, but I don't mean to offend anybody. But there are stories of once Jesus, if you believe in all that, being resurrected, and I certainly do, because I think there's a DNA lineage. So in some sort of physical form, and that would make sense. Plus, there were sightings of Jesus everywhere, and white, black, all kinds of different things, and in Africa, and So I think that he came down a few different times, or maybe he went a lot of places, and maybe he came down a few different times and he went a lot of places. Every single one of those times, but I lost my train of thought there. Oh no, right. Okay, so Jesus, the being that we know as Jesus or Yeshua, or whatever that may be, Michael. I do believe he's up there. I very rarely can check in on the being of Jesus and really get anything back. I can't get any feedback on that. But if I check in on this concept of like Jesus being Yeshua, and I don't want to use the word living, but existing in this ship, this gigantic mothership, if you will, or a spirit ship, or what I call cloud. I coined this term cloud ship. I honestly do believe I coined that term. If I could just toot my own horn. Just joking. No, not joking. I do believe that, actually. But the cloud ships, those ships that are up there out of phase and invisible, I do believe he's up there, or the being that we might consider that is up there. I hope this doesn't seem like blasphemous, because I don't want to lose any viewers. I only have 2. But I do believe that is real, and I didn't make this up. This story came to me from many different angles. I sat with it and thought about it, and I think I've actually been on it. I have had dreams where I've been in this ship, like, and it was like a cloud ship, and I was misbehaving, and I think that's why I don't get a lot of feedback on that. But when I check in, I don't get a lot of feedback on Jesus Christ per se, but I really get feedback on the New Jerusalem ship and what they're doing for us up there, and that's sort of like this ruling body that's sort of like a higher consciousness that is bringing about change, because that is what's happening. We are in this cycle of change right now. Evil can't be allowed to continue. It never does. It's never allowed to, and it's sort of, you know, it just burns itself out. It's like a match that's going to burn itself out. So there's a system in place that will always change it. And okay, so that's basically it. That's like 20 minutes. I just wanted to go back here to JoJo's thing and show you this that she was talking about John Walsh. Now, I don't know a whole lot about this, but this certainly could be true. DeSantis being Adam Walsh. Now, I know John Walsh, turns out the stories are that he's a horrible and evil guy. And so what you get back to this whole thing about all the things that are destroying us are named the opposite and made to seem like it's helping us. So, you know, you got John Walsh who's trying to look for missing people, but really he's like part of like covering up for this international conglomerate that traffics, you know, people and children and for whatever they want. And it's part of the industrial military complex. And almost, you know, a large portion of the industrial military complex as we know it are basically in the business of just moving people around. And the price for things in those circles isn't money per se, because money's almost useless. That's just for the normies, us here. It's usually, you know, incentives like sex or learning more things or becoming higher on the totem pole or the ladder, you know, and you know, the incentives, the money's currency's different, and it's incentives, and there are people out there that are willing to do that, and there's people out there that are mind controlled, MK Ultra, which is basically the same thing, cloned, chipped, split, fractaled. You know, sometimes these people didn't choose, and sometimes they have to choose these evils as the lesser of two evils. You know, so I'll just leave it. I'll leave us with this thought that a long time ago was told this. Even the drunk or the drug addict in the gutter that you may think is wasting his life and you look down upon, there is still something magical happening there, and good is happening. God has a reason and a plan in there. I know I'm totally going against what I said in my last video, but God always has his eyes all about, and he knows everything that's going on, and it's information as far as I can see. Are we in a closed loop system? More than likely. Is there more out there? Definitely. Are there more closed loop systems? You know, I don't know actually, but what I can say is that there does seem to be an entire collection of information, evidence, and actionable justice. It might take a long time, but it does seem to be a system that's in place that is doing this, and these secret societies are trying to break away from this system, but they cannot, because it's just part of who everything. It's this spiritual realm that we live in, and each dimension or density that we go higher gets us closer back to this source. Once we get to that place, do we go farther and even higher? I would say yes, but I don't know that. And it does seem like there's much more out there. And we can never, ever come to the end anyway. in an infinite system. So anyway, just some ramblings of the madman. Um, Let me know what you think. Please like and comment. And I love you guys. Awesome. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.